The kitchen window glowed warmly on the winter night. Inside, the air was thick with holiday scents, melting chocolate, vanilla, and sharp peppermint. On the counter lay the holiday essentials, a worn Betty Crocker cookbook and old handwritten recipe cards. These recipes were the core of mid-century American Christmas, a legacy of mothers stirring fudge, passing on traditions. Every moment spent making these candies was a simple act of love, turning basic ingredients into memorable holiday jewels. The candies of Christmas passed. Number 1. Divinity Fudge. This cloud-like confection was the crown jewel of many a 1950s Midwest candy tray, a testament to the home cook's skill in managing a sugar thermometer. It was famously fickle, requiring egg whites to be whipped just so, and hot sugar syrup poured in a slow, steady stream on a low humidity day. Families adored its delicate, fluffy texture and the way pecans or maraschino cherries could be folded into its snowy white base, making it look like a little patch of winter. An interesting fact is that its success or failure was often a topic of family legend. It truly separated the dedicated candy makers from the casual bakers, and its disappearance is largely due to the rise of easy, microwave-based fudge recipes. The high, shimmering peaks of meringue were a source of immense pride for any hostess. It was a candy that demanded respect, promising ethereal sweetness only to those who honored the precise steps. Number 2. Seafoam Candy. Popular in the post-war 1940s and 1950s, this crunchy, airy candy, often called sponge candy or honeycomb, was a thrilling, volatile creation. Baking soda was added to hot sugar and corn syrup, causing it to rapidly foam up into a massive golden brown structure before cooling into a light, glass-like sheet. The joy was in the crackle, its satisfying shatter-on-the-tongue crispness that was so different from other sweets. Its historical charm comes from its simplicity, often being dipped in a thin layer of dark chocolate. Today, it's mostly forgotten because its delicate structure makes it tricky to store and package. The sound of it breaking beneath a knife was the sound of pure holiday anticipation. Its burnt sugar depth of flavor was something truly complex, often missing in today's simpler sweets. Number 3. Peppermint pinwheels. These festive spirals were a Christmas staple, particularly in 1960s suburban homes, a visually stunning blend of pink/red and white dough. They were made by layering and rolling out vanilla and peppermint-flavored doughs, similar to a cookie, but resulting in a firm, sliceable candy that tasted crisp and clean. The family connection was strong, as children loved to help press the dough layers together and watch the pinwheel pattern emerge. They were a variant of the famous Betty Crocker cookie book pinwheels, but adapted with more sugar and less flour for a candy-like bite, slowly fading from popularity as time-consuming rolling and chilling recipes were replaced by drop cookies. The careful alignment of the two colored doughs required a steady hand that felt almost ceremonial. Each slice revealed a perfect, swirling vortex of Christmas color. Number 4. Church windows. A dazzling candy of the 1950s and 1960s, this treat was less about cooking and more about assembly. Beloved in community kitchens across the South and Midwest, melted chocolate, butter, and marshmallows were mixed together, then rolled around bright, crushed, jewel-toned hard candies or jellied fruit slices. When sliced, the resulting rounds revealed an array of stained glass colors peeking out from the chocolate. The interesting fact is that the name comes from its visual similarity to stained glass church windows, and its simple, no-bake nature meant it never needed a Betty Crocker stovetop. But it vanished as holiday complexity gave way to commercial, store-bought convenience. They looked like edible mosaics, each one a miniature sun catcher on the plate. The sweet, slightly chewy center of the fruit jelly offered a wonderful surprise within the dark chocolate. Number 5. Butterscotch Drops. These simple, deeply comforting candies were a fixture of 1940s wartime and post-war kitchens, offering a rich sweetness with minimal, accessible ingredients. They were a hard candy created by boiling butter, brown sugar, and a touch of vinegar until the mixture reached the hard crack stage, then dropped quickly onto waxed paper. Families loved the intense caramelized flavor and the cozy aroma that filled the house, a sweet counterpoint to the pine tree. They often appeared on a Betty Crocker holiday checklist for quick, budget-friendly gifts, but the rise of individually wrapped, mass-produced hard candies eventually made the simple homemade drop feel obsolete. The deep amber color promised a profound, buttery richness before the first tiny tap of the tooth. A true taste of vintage economy, maximizing flavor from basic pantry items. Number 6. Candied orange peel. A very old-world, resourceful treat popular in the 1940s and 1950s, especially in homes that valued thrift and using every part of the fruit. Thick strips of orange peel were carefully boiled multiple times, then simmered in a sugar syrup until translucent, and finally coated in fine granulated sugar for a crystallized crunch. This candy was prized for its sophisticated bittersweet complexity, offering a burst of bright citrus in the winter. Its history traces back centuries, but its modern decline is purely due to the lengthy, multi-day process of preparing the peel, which few modern bakers have the patience for. The final dusting of sugar created a beautiful, frosty exterior that hid the chewy center. It was the grown-up candy on the platter, offering a sophisticated counterpoint to the simple chocolate. Number 7. Date Nut Roll. A highly nutritious and dense candy, this was particularly popular in the 1950s and 1960s as a healthier-sounding option on the holiday table. Ground dates, nuts, and a small amount of sugar or corn syrup were mixed into a thick, pliable mass, then rolled into a log and coated in powdered sugar or coconut. The finished log was sliced into thick, chewy discs, a favorite because it was filling and kept well. Betty Crocker often featured date recipes to appeal to bakers looking for treats that were heartier than pure sugar, but its somewhat heavy, earthy flavor profile eventually lost out to lighter, pure sugar confections. Each slice offered a dense, satisfying chew that felt both wholesome and indulgent. It was the kind of treat that kept grandfathers happy while they watched the holiday parade. Number 8. Maraschino Cherry Fudge. This deeply pink or white fudge was a dazzling mid-century creation, especially loved in the 1960s for its vibrant color and kitschy flair. It was made by adding drained maraschino cherries and their bright red syrup to a classic fudge base of sugar, evaporated milk, and marshmallow cream. Children adored the sweet, almond-flavored cherry pieces scattered throughout the smooth, creamy bite. This recipe was a hallmark of the era's enthusiasm for pre-packaged, brightly colored ingredients, but as food trends shifted toward more natural colors and flavors, its artificial hue sadly became unfashionable. The almond extract married perfectly with the cherry flavor, giving it a distinct, almost medicinal sweetness. It sat proudly on the platter, a bright beacon of artificial holiday cheer. Number 9. Peanut Butter Haystacks. A quick, satisfying no-bake favorite from the 1960s and 1970s, a simple yet effective way to use pantry staples during the holiday rush. Chow mein noodles and cornflakes were folded into a mixture of melted peanut butter, butterscotch chips, and sometimes a bit of honey. The clusters were dropped onto waxed paper to set, resembling tiny, messy haystacks. They were a beloved, crunchy contrast to soft cookies and fudges, and Betty Crocker promoted many easy, no-bake recipes for busy homemakers. The candy faded as quick mix baking became the norm, and the slightly odd combination of noodles and candy became less appealing. The salty crunch of the noodles provided a necessary textural disruption to the surrounding smoothness. These were the fastest treats to make, often assembled while the oven was busy with pies. Number 10. Molasses Taffy. This rustic, time-honored treat was popular across the 1940s and early 1950s, a tradition tied to old-fashioned candy pulls that involved the whole family. Molasses, sugar, and vinegar were cooked to the hardball stage, then pulled with buttered hands until it turned a glossy, light gold and became aerated and chewy. The reward was its deep, warming spice and satisfying chew. The famous taffy pull was an event itself, fostering memories and laughter, but the sticky, messy, and physically demanding pulling process was simply too much trouble for modern, fast-paced holiday preparations. The dark, earthy sweetness of the molasses spoke of winter warmth and simple agrarian roots. Stretching the glowing strands of taffy under the bare kitchen bulb was a cherished form of holiday communion. Number 11. Chocolate Caramels. A foundational candy of the 1940s and 1950s, These were a staple of any serious candy maker, demanding attention and precision on the stovetop. They combined evaporated milk, sugar, butter, and cocoa or chocolate, cooked slowly to a chewy, non-sticky consistency, then cut into squares and meticulously wrapped in waxed paper. They were an enduring classic for their rich, deep flavor and smooth, buttery pull. An early Betty Crocker fact: the use of evaporated milk was key to their specific chewiness and longevity, but the availability of cheaper, store-bought, individually wrapped caramels gradually diminished the need for the homemade version. Each perfectly wrapped square was a promise of deep, mellow chocolate satisfaction. Wrapping them became an art form, ensuring no sticky fingers spoiled the box's presentation. Number 12. Gumdrop Nougat, a textural masterpiece of the 1960s and 1970s, offering a contrast of creamy softness and sticky fruitiness. This nougat combined fluffy, whipped egg whites or marshmallow creme with boiled sugar syrup, into which colorful gumdrops and sometimes nuts were folded. The finished block was cut into squares, showcasing the vibrant colors. Families enjoyed the candy's cheerful look and the burst of unexpected flavor from the chewy gumdrops. This confection was a reflection of the era's love for bright, easy-to-use ingredients, but its intense sweetness and labor-intensive cooling process caused it to lose favor to simpler recipes. The bright, sugary chew of the gumdrops provided a delightful resistance against the soft, yielding nougat base. It was a visually exciting candy, looking as if a child had decorated the kitchen countertop. Number 13. Creamy Pralines. While associated with the South, a simplified, creamy version became a holiday favorite throughout the 1950s and 1960s Midwest. Thanks to its rich pecan flavor, brown sugar, cream or milk, and butter were cooked to the softball stage before being quickly mixed with pecans and dropped onto parchment. Its specialness lay in the nutty, buttery, slightly grainy texture that was softer and less brittle than true caramel. Betty Crocker recipes often included a shortcut version using light corn syrup for smoother results. But the tendency for this candy to crystallize easily made it a frustration for less confident home cooks, leading to its decline. The warmth of the toasted pecans mingled perfectly with the cooked brown sugar. It was often served slightly warm, allowing the buttery richness to flood the palate. Number 14. Coconut Balls. These snow-white clusters were a simple, delightful, no-bake treat from the 1940s and 1950s, often made by children because of the ease of assembly. Shredded coconut was mixed with a sticky binder, usually sweetened, condensed milk or a simple syrup, and rolled into small, golf ball-sized rounds. They were often finished with a chocolate drizzle or a single cherry press. The tropical scent and chewy texture were a welcome counterpoint to heavy winter flavors. An interesting note is the variation where they were tinted green or red for a holiday flair. But the rise of packaged cookies and store-bought coconut candies made the simple homemade version less necessary. They looked like pristine miniature snowdrifts against the dark foil of the candy tray. The condensed milk provided a deep caramelized sweetness that sugar alone could never achieve. Number 15. Sugar Plums, a truly ancient, evocative candy that saw a resurgence in holiday baking in the 1940s, riding the wave of traditional Christmas stories. These were less about cooking and more about blending dried fruit, figs, raisins, dates with nuts, spices like nutmeg and cinnamon, and a splash of fruit juice or brandy. The mixture was rolled into small balls and coated in superfine sugar. They were valued for their complex spiced flavor and their connection to classic Christmas folklore. But the reliance on expensive or specialized dried fruits and the labor of rolling each one caused them to be largely replaced by fruitcakes and simpler fruit drops. Each one was a tiny, potent orb of concentrated holiday spice and dried sweetness. They embodied the magical, old-world charm that older cookbooks cherished. Number 16. Peanut Brittle, a loud, crunchy staple of the holiday from the 1950s onward, especially prized for its durability and gift-giving potential. Sugar, corn syrup, and water were cooked to a blistering hard crack stage. Then peanuts and a touch of baking soda for that airy, brittle texture were rapidly stirred in and poured onto a sheet. The drama of the rapid pour and the satisfying crunch made it a holiday favorite. Betty Crocker noted its high heat requirement But its decline is partly due to the danger of working with boiling sugar and the popularity of softer, more chewable candies. The moment the baking soda hit the syrup, the mixture hissed and swelled, a dramatic spectacle. It was perfect for mailing in tins, as its toughness ensured survival on long journeys. Number 17. Panoche Fudge. Often called brown sugar fudge, this candy was a richer, deeper flavored cousin to standard chocolate fudge, highly popular in the 1940s and 1950s Midwest. The defining ingredient was brown sugar, which replaced granulated white sugar, creating a creamy caramel-like flavor, usually enhanced with walnuts or pecans. Its warm, comforting color and taste resonated deeply with the cozy holiday mood. The fact that it was one of the few popular fudges without chocolate made it distinct, but it was largely overshadowed when chocolate became widely and cheaply available, and its unique flavor was eventually absorbed by the general term caramel fudge. Its matte, tan surface hinted at a depth of flavor richer than mere white sugar could offer. This was the fudge that tasted like the bottom of the molasses barrel, in the best possible way. Number 18. Marshmallow Roll. A fun, highly visual, and simple candy loved by 1960s and 1970s kids and the perfect no-bake treat. Whole, fluffy marshmallows were lined up and covered in a thick layer of melted chocolate or a dark chocolate butter coating. Before it set, the log was rolled in toasted coconut, chopped nuts, or crushed graham crackers. The process was fast and yielded a beautiful, chunky log for slicing. It was a variation on a popular children's Betty Crocker recipe that used marshmallows creatively, but the reliance on simple convenience foods meant it was eventually deemed too simple or unsophisticated for a holiday main event. The contrast between the gooey interior and the crunchy exterior was pure textural heaven for a child. It was a candy that shouted its assembly line charm without apology. Number 19. Rock Candy. Not a cooked candy, but a scientific wonder of the 1940s and 1950s, often grown in mason jars on kitchen windowsills during the holiday season. A super-saturated sugar water solution was prepared, and a wooden skewer or string was suspended in it, allowing giant, clear, angular sugar crystals to form over days or weeks. The resulting clear, slightly sweet crystals were a visual marvel, appearing like edible quartz. Its value was more in the fascinating process than the flavor, an educational Betty Crocker novelty that vanished as families bought pre-made candy and lost the patience for week-long kitchen experiments. Watching the sharp, perfect edges form on the string day after day felt like watching a small, sweet miracle. These crystalline structures were proof that magic could be brewed right on the kitchen sill. Number 20. Chocolate Crinkles. While most famously a cookie, a richer, denser, almost candy-like version was featured in some 1960s holiday pamphlets, being closer to a truffle than a biscuit. The mixture was extremely rich in cocoa and butter, rolled into balls, thoroughly coated in powdered sugar, and baked only until the center was still very soft. The visual appeal of the cracked, snow-dusted surface was captivating. This fudgy texture made it a favorite on trays of mixed candy and cookies, embodying the blurring line between the two, but the popularization of the cookie version meant the richer, candified one was quietly retired. The initial bite gave way to an intensely dark, velvety smoothness. It required a glass of cold milk or a strong cup of coffee to balance its deep chocolate richness. Number 21. Potato Candy. A Depression-era favorite that persisted into the 1940s and 1950s holiday season due to its incredible thrift and unique texture. A small amount of mashed potato was mixed with copious amounts of powdered sugar until a stiff, kneadable dough formed, often flavored with vanilla and rolled around a layer of peanut butter. The smooth, soft, sliceable roll was surprisingly sweet. The fact that it was made primarily with a vegetable and sugar is its most interesting, unusual detail. Its decline is directly linked to improved economic times, as cooks no longer needed such creative substitutes for expensive candy ingredients. The starch in the potato provided an unparalleled silkiness to the final, sugary dough. It was the ultimate example of making something extraordinary from necessity. Number 22. Popcorn Balls. Though often a Halloween treat, Large, sticky popcorn balls were a colorful centerpiece candy for Christmas throughout the 1950s and 1960s. Popcorn was coated in a cooked syrup made from corn syrup, sugar, and sometimes a splash of molasses, then formed into a tight, sticky sphere while still warm. They were easy to make in large batches, and families loved the playful combination of salty and sweet. Betty Crocker recipes often recommended adding food coloring, red or green, for festive flair, but their extremely sticky nature and the shift toward individual serving candies led to their decline on the holiday tray. They were best enjoyed immediately before the syrup hardened into an impenetrable shell. Holding one felt like holding a sweet, starchy globe of pure childhood. Number 23. Taffy Kisses. Smaller, individually wrapped versions of the traditional pulled taffy, these were a 1950s staple, often flavored with almond or wintergreen. Once the taffy was pulled and cut into small pieces, they were twisted up in small squares of waxed paper, making them perfect for filling stockings and glass candy dishes. The little twisted ends were the kisses, a charming, romantic detail. The labor of cutting and wrapping hundreds of these tiny candies by hand proved too much for subsequent generations, making the store-bought, mass-produced foil-wrapped chocolates the preferred filling for holiday bowls. The faint scent of almond and anise clung to the waxed paper for weeks. They were designed to be tucked into stockings, offering a small, sweet treasure at the toe. Number 24. Fudge Nut Clusters. These were the simplest, most rustic version of a holiday truffle, popular in the 1960s and 1970s, often using leftover ingredients from other baking projects. A simple chocolate and condensed milk fudge base was quickly mixed with large amounts of coarsely chopped pecans, walnuts, or almonds, then dropped by spoon onto a cooling rack. They were a favorite because they were quick, satisfyingly chunky, and could be made in minutes. Their charm was their intentional imperfection and rough-hewn look, but they were eventually replaced by smoother, more elegant-looking truffles and the simple classic block of fudge. Their organic, uneven shapes made them look like they were foraged from a hidden winter treasure trove. These were the candies a busy grandmother could make when time was precious, but love was abundant. Number 25. Chocolate-dipped pretzels. While common now, the homemade chocolate-dipped pretzel rod was a crunchy holiday novelty in the 1970s, a departure from classic cooked candies. Plain pretzel rods were carefully dipped in melted chocolate and immediately dusted with holiday sprinkles or finely chopped nuts, combining the salty snap of the pretzel with the sweet candy coating. It was an instant favorite for its effortless blend of sweet and savory. This treat represented a turning point toward faster, assembly-style holiday sweets, and though they remain, the pure cooked candies they replaced have sadly vanished from the collective kitchen memory. The surprising saltiness made you immediately reach for another sweet, creating a perfect cycle of craving. It signaled the beginning of the end for stovetop candy, yet its appeal was undeniably modern. The quiet sweetness that remains is a reflection, a whisper of a time when the hands that stirred the pot were the very ones that nurtured the home. These old Betty Crocker candies, messy and perfect, were never truly just about sugar and butter. They were time, patience, and care rolled into a log, dropped onto a tray, or pulled between two hands, a testament to the creativity and boundless energy of the home cook. Though the recipes may have disappeared from our modern screens, the spirit of those sticky, sweet traditions still lingers in the kitchen air every December, reminding us that the greatest joy of Christmas is always something handmade, something heartfelt, and something shared.